Now, joining me is former acting U.S. Attorney General Matthew Whitaker to talk about the Hunter indictment and a whole lot more. Matt, thanks so much for joining us on the U.S. Report for the first time. And first of all, I need your thoughts as a former acting Attorney General on today's news of the Hunter Biden indictment.
Yeah, it's good to be with you. And I was recently in Australia, and so I look forward to joining you many times to come. But, you know, the indictment today, I don't think was a surprise to anybody. They had 28 days left to bring these charges. The plea agreement and the whole negotiated sweetheart deal that Hunter Biden had negotiated through his lawyers fell apart, recently. And so this was necessary. The charges, as a former United States attorney myself in the Bush administration, possessing a gun and illegally purchasing a gun are significant felonies, and they carry with them one charge has 5-year potential penalty in prison, and two of the other charges are 10-year felonies that would include time in prison. So these are very serious charges, and it'll be very interesting as it progresses through the system as to whether or not Special Counsel, who was the U.S. Attorney in Delaware, now is Special Counsel Weiss, tries to give another sweetheart deal to resolve these charges. But, my question is, where are the tax charges? Where are the financial crimes? Are those statutes of limitation running as well?
Well, I reckon those are the ones that could lead back to Joe, and that's why they don't want to touch him. But speaking of Joe Biden, I was absolutely shocked by this week. We had the 9/11 anniversary. Joe Biden lied or forgot or made up a story about where he was in the aftermath of the 9/11 attack. Check this out.
Ground Zero in New York. And I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. It looked so devastating because from where you could stand.
But he wasn't there, Matt. He was on the floor of the Senate. There's even video of it.
Buildings in this state are still burning. And in the ultimate American way, he calls at the end of his speech for not abrogating the basic cherished liberties.
How low can the guy go?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not sure that this was intentional. He's been gaffe prone throughout his entire professional career, really. He claimed certain academic accolades when he was first a candidate in the 1970s. And so all of this leads me to one conclusion is, Joe Biden, unfortunately, just doesn't remember things very well. And all of us that experienced 9/11 know how impactful that day was and the days following, and the way that the United States and the world came together to fight radical Islamic terrorism. The fact that he doesn't know or remember that wasn't the day after that he was there on Ground Zero, I think that is, unfortunately, probably a mind that is failing and memories that are growing foggier.
Indeed. I mean, of course, he has been doing this his whole life. I am old enough to remember when he got in trouble for plagiarizing UK Labour leader Neil Kinnock about being the son of a coal miner. That's how old I am. But let's move on, though, to this other story here, which has been fascinating to me, that the efforts to keep Donald Trump off the primary and general election ballots are ramping up, with some states looking at a little-known provision of the Constitution to basically use part of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to keep him off the ballot, even though he's been not convicted of any crimes. Walk us through the legal chicanery that's going on here, and can this work?
Yeah. Well, ultimately, let's cut to the chase. It will fail. Their idea is that Article 14, Section 3 of the Bill of Rights, the Constitution says that if you participated in an insurrection or rebellion against the United States of America, then you are prohibited from holding certain offices. It excludes, first of all, the President of the United States. That's an interesting footnote in history, and they're trying to, again, shoehorn into another provision or another statement in there that this somehow applies to President. But even all of that being said, when this was passed after the Civil War in the 1860s, certainly everyone that passed it and all the states that ratified this 14th Amendment to the Constitution know that what it meant to participate in a rebellion. They knew they had just experienced the Civil War. In this case, to your point, not only has Donald Trump never been convicted of anything, he certainly has never been charged with anything. This is just an aggressive way for the left to try to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. Like I said, it's going to fail, but they are afraid of him. They are afraid of how effective he will be in a second term, how effective he will be in fighting back against the deep state and the bureaucratic quagmire that is Washington, D.C. And so, we'll have to see if any court takes it seriously. This argument was made against a couple House reps following January 6th, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Madison Cawthorn, and both of those efforts failed. Madison lost his primary to another challenger, but both of those theories under the 14th Amendment were rejected by courts.
Well, but Matthew, this gets to a broader thing which I've been seeing out of the left a lot. We've seen it since COVID, where they decide, oh, well, there's a state of emergency. We can suspend the law. We think that Donald Trump being president, well, that's an emergency to us, so we can try these very legal theories on. And now we've also seen the same thing in New Mexico, where the governor has decided that, oh, well, there's an emergency around gun crime, so we're going to suspend people's right to own guns under the law. I'm very curious about where this all leads, though, with America, if you've got a Democrat Party, a progressive left, that believes they can just simply rewrite the law, rewrite the Constitution to meet whatever they think the emergency of the day is, and what that does to the rights of ordinary American citizens.
Yeah, this is the most dangerous idea that really came out of the COVID experience, and that is there were several states that were successful in using emergency powers that essentially these executives created, weren't passed by any elected body, a House or a Senate in a state or federally. And they use these emergency powers to suspend certain fundamental rights, especially the right to worship, and that's protected under the First Amendment. So as I look at this is just a tyrannical left that doesn't think the Constitution should be something to be honored and revered, but is something to be ignored in the interests of their power to control and dominate society. But the patriots and freedom-loving Americans all over this great country are going to push back against this, and thankfully, we continue to have a Supreme Court that seems to be right-minded in this regard and will protect our individual liberties against a tyrannical state.
Matthew Whitaker, going to have to leave it there. Keep up the good fight, and thank you so much.